We are going to learn a new topic, the independent inventory management. For this topic, we will still discuss it for three dimensions: the what, why, and how. So for what and why, the 13.2 and 13.3 in your textbook explain it very well, but it doesn't have a very clear clue about what inventory is and why it is so important. So for this topic, I will not follow the order of the textbook to introduce the what and why, but will provide you another way to explain the definition of inventory management and why we need to learn the inventory management. And for the how here, we are going to learn three tools and several matrices. The common matrix we use to manage the inventories. So this is the overall topics we will discuss later for this independent inventory management. And now let's take a look with the definition of inventory. So what is inventory? The inventory is the stock of materials used to satisfy the customer demand or support the production of services or goods. So any materials you have, you use those materials to meet the demand in the market or to support the production. They are the inventories. And for the inventories, I can give you a more specific picture to illustrate it, and this is also gives you an idea about the inventory trade-offs. The inward. So the inward flow of the water here represents the input of materials, such as the component parts, the office supplies, the finished products, and the outward flow of the water represents the demand for materials in inventory, such as the customer orders or service requirements for suppliers or the furnishings and others. So this is the demand for the materials in inventories. And another possible outward flow is that the scrap. So this is what we have discussed when we mentioned the lean manufacturing. This is also a possible way to lower the inventory's level. So together, the differences between the input flow of the materials and the output flow of materials determine the level of inventories. So this is also give you an idea about what inventory is and also give you an idea about the trade-offs of inventory. Now let's think about a question. So if we know the inventory is the materials we use to meet the demands and we use to support the production, and we know the trade-off of inventories, then how much inventories we should keep? We should keep a large amount of inventories or we should keep a small amount of inventories? Think about that questions. What kinds of answers do you have? Now let's take a look with two things, the pressures for small inventories and also the pressures for large inventories. So I'll give you all the information about what kind of cost, what kinds of things you will meet if you keep a small inventories and what kinds of things you will meet if you keep a large inventories. So for a small inventories, why company want to keep a small inventories? Because the because of the cost. The cost of capital, the handling cost, the taxes, the insurance, and shrinkage. What is the first one? The cost of capital. The inventories can be regarded as assets. So the money you spend on inventories, you cannot spend that portion of the money on others. In other words, you lose opportunities. You may lose opportunities to grow up because you have spent those monies on inventories. So this is what we call the cost of capital. Companies want to reduce those costs because they want to invest on other things, so they want to keep a small inventories. And for the storage and handling costs, the taxes and the insurance, we can understand it for a simple way. Because you keep a lot of inventories, you need to spend more to hold them, to pay for the tax and to pay for the insurance. So this is also the reason why company want to keep a small inventories, because it may help them to save money on holding and taxes and insurance. And the last part of the reason why company keep a small inventories is about the shrinkage. And I gave you three types of the shrinkage here. The first one is what we call the pilferage. So the pilferage is about the theft. So what if you stole something in your warehouse and your workers or others stole them? Then you may lose money. So this is a possible way. Like if you keep a lot of inventories, you may experience that loss. And the second one of the shrinkage is about the obsolescence. So obsolescence is talks about the out of date. So it's specific in a fashion industry like the clothes, like the shoes. If you keep a lot of inventories and you cannot sell them in a following several months, the clothes or the shoes you keep may out of date and you cannot sell them in the market anymore. So you may lose money because of the obsolescence. And the last one, deterioration. Foods and beverage, for example, lose values and might even have to be discarded when their shelf life is reached. So this is the things you need to consider about. If you keep a large amount of inventories, you may experience the value lost because of the deterioration. So this is all the reasons I listen here about the small inventories, about why companies want to keep a small inventories. Then why company want to keep a large inventories? Because of the following reasons. The first, the customer service. The high inventory levels reduce the potential for stock outs and back orders. And a stock out is an order that cannot be satisfied, and the back order is the customer order that cannot be filled when promised or demanded, but it is filled later. So for both of these two situations, if you keep a large amount of inventories, you can reduce the risks. And why we need to keep a large inventories considering the customer service? Because customers do not like waiting for back orders, and many of them will take their business elsewhere. You may lose the customers forever. So this is why you prefer to keep a large inventories, because you don't want to experience the stock outs. And the second reason is about ordering cost. The ordering cost incurs when a company places a new order. So just like the hiring cost we have discussed in a former topic, this is not about salary. It's about when you plan to hire somebody, you need to pay for that hiring processes. The ordering cost is if you keep a small inventories and if you need a lot of the units, so you have to place a more orders, and place more orders means the more payments for ordering cost. And the third one is about the setup cost. It includes the labor and the time to make the changeover, the cleaning, and sometimes new tools or equipment. By creating the more inventory means like you reduce the times of setup, then you save money on setup cost. And the labor and equipment utilization, actually they talks about the productivity. So creating more inventories, management can increases the workforce productivity and the facility utilization in several ways. For example, placing a larger, less frequent production orders reduces the number of unproductivity setups, which add no value to a service or a product. So this is the fourth reason. The next reason is about the transportation. So if you keep a small inventories, which means like you place a small number of the units per order, and it may increases the transportation cost. Sometimes outbound transportation cost can be reduced by increasing the inventory level. And the inbound transportation cost can also be reduced by creating more inventories. The last one is about the payments to suppliers. So we can understand these reasons for a common way. Like in general, if we buy more, we may be able to enjoy the discount. So this is talk the same things for the inventories. If you place an order, if you place a large amount of orders for the suppliers may provide you some discount, then you can save money. So this is all the reasons why companies choose to keep large inventories. After introducing the definition of inventories, after introducing the trade-off of inventories, now let's talk about the types of the inventories. I gave you two ways to classify the inventories into different categories. The first one is the accounting. So if we consider for an accounting dimension, we can have those three types of inventories: the raw materials, the work in process, and the finished goods. So here are the picture shows what are the raw materials, the work in process, and the finished goods respectively. So this is one of the way we can classify the inventories. And another way is what we call the operational inventories, and we have four types: the cycle inventory, the safety stock, the anticipation, and the pipeline. The cycle here, also referred to as the working stock, is the portion of the inventory available to meet the normal demand during a given period. So this is the regular orders, the regular units you keep on hand to meet the demand for a specific time period, like for a month or for a year or for half of a year. So this is what we call the cycle inventories. The normal the normal units you keep to meet the normal demand. And the safety stock inventory is the surplus inventory that protects against the uncertainties in demand or the lead time or the supply changes. So this is the stock. This is the regular stock you always keep, but this is the stock to help you to reduce the challenging, to reduce the possibilities to meet risks. So this is the stock to help you to meet the uncertainties for the supplies or for the lead time or for the demand. And the anticipation inventory are the inventories which use to absorb the uneven rates of the demand or the supply. So think about the seasonal pattern products. So think about the ice cream, think about the snowboard, the examples we have mentioned before. So the anticipation inventory, just like for example the ice cream companies, they store the inventories, they store the ice cream during the summertime, and those kinds of ice cream they store during the summertime, they use them to meet the demand in the store in the winter time. They use those inventories to meet the demand during the summertime. So this is the inventories to meet the uneven demand. So one of the popular examples the companies keep the anticipation inventory is for those companies who sell or who produce the seasonal pattern products. And the pipeline inventory, the last one, is the inventories which is created when an order for an item is issued but not yet received. So this is considering the lead time. When you want to know how much inventory you have, you do not forget the inventories you haven't received yet, but you have already placed an order. So those portion of the inventories we call the pipeline inventory. You haven't received, but you have already placed the order. So you will receive in several days or in the several months. So when you want to know how much inventory you have, you need to use the number of the inventories you keep on hand, you store in the warehouses, and also the inventories in transit, the inventories on the way. So this is the four types for the of the inventories if we consider for our operational dimensions. And this is what I'd like to introduce for you about what and why dimension of the inventory management for this topic. And in the textbook, in the 13.2 and 13.3, it talks about the similar things. It introduced like the similar information I have mentioned, but it introduces it for another ways. So it mentions you the performance of the inventory impacts and introduces you the different types of the inventory management several famous companies has. So what kinds of inventory management strategy they have to operate their business, and also the trade-offs of the inventory. So it discusses about the good aspects, the bad aspects, and the ugly aspects of the inventories. Just like why we want to keep a small inventories, why we want to keep a large inventories, they talk the same things, but for another ways. And what I like you to remember to take a look at for the what and why dimension of this topic for your textbook is these two common questions. So basically, when we discuss how to manage inventories, we discuss how much should we order and when should we order. So we talk about the quantity at time. So this is the core questions we need to figure them out in terms of inventory management. And before I start to introduce the tools, the how dimension of this topic, I'd like to introduce you 3 words you may meet very often when you look at the inventory management. The first one is SKU. If you read the textbook, you will meet the SKU many times. So you need to figure out what SKU is, and this is what I'd like to introduce to you, except for the contents in the textbook. And the second popular word in inventory management is the lot size. So what lot size is, and the last one is leading time. So let's take a look with SKU. So what is SKU? The SKU, the full name of SKU is Standard Keeping Unit. So this is a unique code in our daily life. In our daily life is a scannable barcode, and this code represents an individual item or product. So this is the code. The SKU in inventory management actually it represents a specific item, an individual item. And in order to figure out what SKU is, I'd like to provide you another word, SPU, the standard product unit. And here is the examples, you can figure them out. So for example, the iPhone 11, when we mention iPhone 11, the SPU is iPhone 11. But what is SKU? Because we consider the individual items, so even for iPhone 11, because we have different capacity, we have different color, we have different carrier, so we have different individual item for the iPhone 11. So what is SKU? We use a number or a code to represent a item, a specific item. If the iPhone with white with 64 GB with carrier with AT&T, we use one number to represent it. If it's still white color but with a larger capacity with the same carrier here, we use another code because this one represents another individual item. So for SKU, when we mention SKU in the inventory management, we talk about what kinds of items you keep, you have, or you want to place an order. So this is SKU. The first words I like to introduce to you to help you to understand the textbook. The second word is about the lot size. So the lot size refers to the quantity of an item ordered for a delivery on a specific date or manufactured in a single production run. So this is how much you can obtain if you place an order, or how much you can obtain if you produce for a single run. The lot size here in general, this is the quantity of the units you can have. So in general, when we mention the cycle inventories, when we consider for the operational dimension, we mention the cycle inventory. How much cycle inventory you have currently depends on the lot size, depends on how much units you can obtain if you place an order, or how much units you can obtain if you produce for a single run. So lot size has a very close relationship with the cycle inventory. The cycle inventory actually is the average for the lot size, for the quantity here. So this is the second words I want to mention. Like if you made the lot size, and I hope you can understand what it is. The last one is the leading time. I have mentioned the leading time when we mentioned the forecasting, when we mentioned the MPC. The lead time is the time differences between you place an order and you receive that order. So this is like when we mention the inventory management, we need to focus on the lead time, just like the pipeline inventory we have mentioned. When you want to calculate how much item you keep on hand, you need to make sure you consider also about the order you have placed but you haven't received for the units. So this is the third thing I'd like to introduce. So do not forget the pipeline inventory. Do not forget the lead time. Do not forget the units you will have in transit. So this is all the introduction for the what and why dimension in terms of inventory management.